What are we calling it?
Dodger what? Let's sing us something.
Pleased by an LA Times conversion video podcast.
How about the road to glory?
Dodger talk without Dave Vassay.
Dodger talk.
About 3 homers.
That's actually good.
No, not that. What comes after?
Dodger footnote. Please watch.
Yeah, enticing thing.
Hello and welcome to Dodger Stadium. I'm Jack Harris, the LA Times Dodger beat writer, with my two of our esteemed columnists, Dylan Hernandez and Bill Plaschke, for the first episode of, with you two, what we're going to have to call Dodger Debate. So,
Because I'm always right and he's always wrong.
we're here on the eve of the NLDS between the Dodgers and the D-backs. Best of 5 series starts here Saturday night. And guys, it's been an interesting year for the Dodgers. They won 100 games when not a lot of people were expecting that. They ran away with the NL West title after struggling in the first half of the season. They're not exactly World Series favorites, but some people, him most of all, picking them right now to surprise and win a title. And it starts with what's kind of shaping up as an interesting series against the D-backs team that has their pitching lined up well, has a lot of young players, is coming off a surprise sweep of the Milwaukee Brewers in the wild card round. So I'll start here with Dylan. We know how Plaschke feels about the Dodgers coming into the playoffs right now.
They're going to win the World Series.
But for you,
I guaranteed it.
For you, how do you feel about the state of this team, where the pitching's at, kind of how they're coming into the playoffs, and what they might be able to do in October with this roster?
Yeah, well, we've never seen a team with this type of pitching situation win a World Series, right? I mean, I think like the Royals were brought up as an example, whatever. But even there, I think Volquez had like a 7-inning start somewhere, right? Somebody else had like a
And the last
7-inning
decade,
start.
every pennant winner's had at least 2 6-inning starts, and usually a lot more than that.
Yeah, so, I think until it gets done, right, you just have to expect that, it's going to kind of fall the way it has the last 150 years or however long they've been playing this sport. Look, at some point, this is the direction the sport is heading, right? So at some point, somebody will do this. But until it kind of happens, honestly, it's going to be shock you maybe, but I'm a bit of a skeptic with these things. So, I don't think that they're going to have the pitching to do this. I think they'll get through, they'll stomp these guys, obviously. But, next round, the round after, I kind of wonder what the toll is going to be of trying to kind of, navigate the couple extra rounds to the playoffs.
Yeah, which I think is kind of the biggest question with this team right now. You have Clayton Kershaw, who's going to start game 1, but he's been battling shoulder issues. He's barely hitting 90. He's not pitching more than 4 or 5 innings for the most part. Bobby Miller's starting game 2. He's been good in his rookie season, but is a rookie. And he's one of several rookies that they're going to count on. And then games 3 and 4, it could be a real big patchwork full of fun buzzwords like openers and bulk guys and piggybacks. So with all that, Bill, why do you still like them with all of this?
Yeah, I like them to win the World Series. I wrote it in the paper, guaranteed it. Clip it out, save your place at the parade. It's happening. Everybody talks about the pitching, so we're talking about the bullpen. We're talking about basically, is the Dodger bullpen good enough to survive this? Well, since the middle of June, they've been the best bullpen in baseball. They've been lights out. So no matter how many relievers are used, they've been the best in baseball. And do you know how many relievers they used in average per game in 2020 World Series? 5.
A lot.
So they used a lot of relievers in 5. Do you know who the winning pitcher was? Either way, the winning pitcher was in the clinching game against Tampa Bay.
I think it was Alex Wood, right?
Victor Gonzalez.
Victor Gonzalez.
A reliever. And you know who closed the game, of course, was a starter, who should not be named because he's been erased from everybody's memory. But I just think that they have the pitching. They revolutionized the sport. Andrew Friedman's revolutionized the sport already. I mean, he's done so many different things. This is just the next step in his baseball genius. This will work.
Here's the thing, though. But if they needed 5 in 2020, what are they going to need this time?
Correct.
8?
8's fine. They've got the best bullpen in baseball.
Yeah, but the thing is, every time you make a pitching change, you're counting on that guy actually having it that day. And
those guys had had that day for 3 months.
And to Bill's point, especially the back end of the bullpen between Evan Phillips, Ryan Brazier, Bruce Dark-Gratterall, they've been really good, especially late in the season. I think they've combined for a 1.4 ERA, 32 saves between them. To me, the last 9 outs are easy to figure out. It's the first 18. It's getting there.
Okay.
With all of the different arms you're going to have.
So
to
Bobby
use.
Bobby Miller's going to go 6.
He's
Maybe.
not going 6.
I mean, that would go counter. I think it's possible, but that would also
This
run
is the
counter.
Diamondbacks for one of these.
But it would run counter to the way
about this series. We're not talking about this series. Like, I mean, let's not even waste our time with the D-backs. I mean, we're looking at like Atlanta, right?
Yeah, Bobby Miller goes 6. He throws 100. He's been
against the Braves.
Yes, he goes 6. We saw him against the Braves last
he can do it.
in August.
And
I was there.
And I agree with you. I
Last
think he
week.
can do it. I also think that organizationally, from Dave Roberts on up, they're looking at this pitching staff as probably, getting 6 innings out of anybody is probably not what they're expecting. I think that they're going to have shorter leashes, even with somebody like Bobby Miller, and trust that we can piggyback with an Emmett Sheehan or get a couple innings out of a Michael Grove or try to get a couple innings out of a Shelby Miller. To me, that's how they're looking at this internally, which brings up the question, like, if they're not going to let guys try to get through 5, 6, 7 innings, can they still piece this together?
They have the arms. They have the depth. They have the talent. They've done it for the last 3 months. They've done it for the last 10 years as far as the piecing. They piece together every season. Every season.
It's like the Rockies and like
every season is pieced together.
Yeah, but I think, and
They
look,
won
I don't
100
want to
games
take
3
away,
years in
right?
a
Yeah,
row.
okay, let's take the 100 wins, right? Like, I don't think 100 wins mean now what they used to mean
was a balanced
when we
schedule
were
this year.
when you and I were like young people, right? Because there's so many teams aren't even trying.
But it means a lot this year because it's a balanced schedule. They didn't get overloaded with the bad Rockies and the bad Padres.
I just think that there's Atlanta, like offensively, right? Or even if it's like Philadelphia, whatever. And then there's like everybody else, And I just don't think that, again, in this case, really, right? Especially, I mean, I think postseason baseball has always been different from regular season baseball, I think, right? And then now I think that gap is even kind of more pronounced because of the teams that try and the teams that don't, And so, I don't know. And then you're dealing with also a lot of like young guys, right? I mean, I do think, and I think there's, right, Andrew Friedman used the word arm talent, right?
Arm talent. Big boy stuff.
Which
been
sounds,
big boy stuff.
Arm talent, though, is kind of like the word that NFL scouts use when they have no idea of a quarterback, how he's going to react if he gets hit by an NFL linebacker, right? It's like, well, he's got arm talent. And like, but that's the other part of this, right? It's like, you put these guys in these. We have never seen any of these guys in these situations. Now, obviously, yeah, you look at like Bobby Miller, right? He's got an ace. He's got legitimate frontline ceiling. Now, is he actually that guy? This is also going to be the first time.
And has shown it at times this year. He's grown up a little bit maturity-wise.
35 years ago, I sat here and had the same discussion about the '88 Dodgers. They weren't going to beat. They lost 10 and 11 to the Mets during the regular season. The Oakland Athletics were better than the Atlanta Braves this year. They're awesome Sultans of SWAT, the Bash brothers. They had no chance against either one of them. But they beat both of them because they were together and they were connected and they had a plan. I think this team is the same.
Yeah.
I think the '88's going to repeat itself.
But this goes back to, you go to '88 though, like again, they had Hershiser.
I think the same thing applies in 20, where for all of the patchworkness of that postseason, they had Walker Buehler in 2 really important games. Biggest one of all, Game 6 of that CS.
Now, maybe to help your argument, right? The one thing they didn't have in 20 was a closer, right? Sure. And they went into that postseason.
Jansen was watching.
Yeah, right. Yeah, everybody knew it was just kind of a matter of time before Jansen, right? And fortunately for them, he kind of like imploded in like a non-threatening type of situation, so they were able to, get the benefit of both winning and like being able to remove him, right? And this time they do have, again, like you mentioned, the back of the bullpen set, so at least they have that end taken care of. I don't know. Again, I'm just kind of an old fart here, which I guess I am. But like,
there's nobody more old fart than me.
I'm still a guy. I still like giving the ball to the pitcher, the starter. Hey, go 7, go 8, go 9.
I just don't think the game has changed.
I agree. I
agree.
agree.
The relievers are ready, and the relievers, Dodger relievers have all been prepared for this moment.
Yeah, I just think that it's gone so far. Like with this team, they've gone so far the other way, right? And it's just. If you can have one guy, right, just kind of be in there as opposed to having to mix and match 4 guys, again, that's 4, potential landmines, right? Any one of those guys has a bad day that can ruin your game, and we saw that again last year against the Padres.
the one thing the Diamondbacks have going for them is not only do they have that traditional kind of 1-2 punch at the top of
That
their
got
rotation,
punched in the mouth when they were here in
that part's
here
true.
last month.
But they're going to get Merrill Kelly in Game 1, Zach Gallen in Game 2, and then both of those guys again in Games 4 and 5 if the series gets there. Now, as Plaschke points out, they have not been good, that duo, against the Dodgers this year or for their careers. The Dodgers have had their way with them. I think their combined ERA against LA this year was close to 6. Zach Gallen was bad on opening day. They both came in here in August.
This is going to be a sweep. This is going to be a
Chase
sweep.
Field is also like Dodger Stadium East, right?
It can be.
I mean, yeah, and look, good for the, little desert town, whatever.
Did you just say good for the little desert town?
Yeah, they got.
Get that in slow motion.
Look, they have not. The only thing Phoenix has going for it are their great pizzerias, Chivo and the Parlor.
T-Bone Steakhouse,
You know.
best restaurant in America.
You're not going to include Bobby Q's in this?
Oh, Bobby Q's, the barbecue,
the
Bobby Q's, yeah, for sure,
the
legendary.
institution.
Yeah.
But when you look at this series, I mean, how much do you kind of value the pitching part? Because I think when you look at the rest of it, the Dodgers pretty clearly have the better lineup. They have the 2 MVP candidates at the top. I think it's a deeper collection overall. The back of the Dodgers bullpen is you probably like more, even though Arizona's bullpen was good in September and really good in that Milwaukee series. The D-backs have the defensive edge. They can create havoc on the bases, but I think if Arizona's going to have any chance, it does come down to can you get really good starts out of Merrill Kelly and Zach Gallen first in Dodger Stadium, and then if you get there when the series is on
All right,
the line.
I got a question for Dylan. Who's the Diamondbacks rookie star?
Corbin Carroll.
You sure it's not Carroll Corbin?
Man, why are you trying to embarrass me?
It is Corbin Carroll. Good job.
I think the series still, though, does come down to the fact, can those guys pitch well, which recent history says
They can't.
probably not.
Probably not.
And again, right, and similar to if I haven't seen it, I don't. I mean, let's not even waste our time talking about the D-backs.
I'll mention in dealing with your.
Do you think they should jump in the pool?
No,
Why not?
because I think you don't celebrate that after a NLDS. You wait till the World Series.
They have not played well. 5 regular seasons in a row, the Dodgers have won the head-to-head series, and it hasn't been that close, especially in this ballpark.
They come in here and they just wilt. They do it every year, and I don't think it's going to be any different this year.
Okay, so speaking of wilting, it's something the Dodgers have done in a lot of recent Octobers. Feel confident about them in this series, but just going into this postseason overall, to zoom out a little bit, how much pressure is there on this group, which, as we pointed out, has a lot of flaws. I don't think has nearly the kind of this team has everything it takes to win a World Series kind of expectations that the teams of the last 3 or 4 years have had. But given that, how much pressure is there on this team to not only get through this series, which I think we all agree would be kind of disastrous if they didn't, but to at least make a run against the Braves or Phillies, get to a World Series, and be put together an actually competitive run? Do you give them any sort of benefit of the doubt here because of all the pieces they've lost, because of all the roster issues that they're dealing with right now, or is this the same kind of situation going into an October where the Dodgers have to perform, otherwise it's kind of a failure of a year?
Yeah, I think it is, because they kind of don't have, they have the financial wherewithal to kind of address these things, right? I mean, I think it was in some ways a choice that the roster was built the way it was. It wasn't okay, we can't do anything, right? I mean,
they went for Justin Verlander in the offseason. They tried to get Eduardo Rodriguez at the trade deadline. They've tried to do things, they just didn't land on them.
Right, and it was just they didn't want to overextend them. Maybe, in the offseason you could argue maybe they were waiting on the Bauer thing, which again is ultimately their fault. Maybe it was that they misread the market, right? Or maybe it was that they didn't feel that these guys were worth that much, right? And just kind of decided to, okay, well, it's too expensive now. Let's sit this out, wait for Ohtani, whatever. But yeah, and I think the biggest thing too is just that the fact that they have right now 2, future Hall of Fame caliber players, both kind of at the heights of their power, right? And they're both on the wrong side.
Might not be at the heights of their power later in these contracts.
Right? Yeah, and that's the thing. They're on the wrong side of 30. They're both at this peak, which is kind of my argument for every offseason, every trade deadline is you got to maximize this window, right? I mean, these 2 guys are having both great seasons. And so, yeah, and I think it's going to kind of come down to them. And I do think the fact that, Muncy turned his season around and Will Smith was a little better at the end. And
JD Martinez.
Yeah, and I don't think that these guys are going to be quite as, while I'm not crazy about, the bottom end of the lineup, I do think that these guys, right, Freeman and Betts will have more protection than they did last year in the playoffs where, obviously, Trey Turner just perform the complete disappearing act. So I think that it's kind of, the fact that they have those guys going, and again, like you said, like they might not be the same players, when these contracts expire. Yeah, there is definitely urgency here. And
I think there's less pressure on this team than any team I can remember in the 11 championship seasons, 11 seasons, 10 championships. Nobody picks them to win. Nobody's picked them to even
except you,
except me.
Now, but also
nobody has picked them. Nobody picked them to beat the Padres during the regular season. They weren't picked to win the division. You look at all the experts. I'm the only one that's picking to win the World Series. Nobody, all the networks, all the websites, nobody's. This is the first time I can remember that nobody's picking them, and I think this works into their framework or in their minds. I think this is in their mind. This is in their DNA. This is what they're thinking about. So for once, they're the underdogs, and I think with less pressure equals better performance.
I wonder though, right? Maybe they're like that cartoon character that kind of runs off the cliff and they keep running, and then they just read Plaschke's column, and then they realize where they are now, and they're going to look down and.
Yeah, I mean, I think to Bill's point,
Jack agrees with me.
Being around this team every day, that's one of the things that has emerged. It emerged after their division clinching celebration. It emerged after they got to 100 wins on the last day of the regular season, which is, whether they want to acknowledge it or not, they alluded to the fact people didn't believe in us. We know that people were down on us this year. We know that we have all these question marks about our roster and whatnot. And their viewpoint is it's almost like people overlook the fact that you have Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts and still maybe not 100% Clayton Kershaw, but still a productive one while he's out there. You still have this big payroll. I think there is some of that at play, at least internally, in how this team looks at itself.
I think that's a big factor.
Being an underdog, being a team that we hear this a lot of years. I think there's maybe a little more credence to like how much they like each other, how a new look room has kind of melded around the stars.
That matters. That
Jason
matters.
Hayward and Miguel Rojas.
If we're going to say a terrible clubhouse led to them losing last year to Padres, we've got to say a good clubhouse is going to help them win this year. And
I think it'll definitely help avoid the lack of intensity and urgency that we saw in that NLDS last year.
Dylan did a great column on Dave Roberts.
October.
Manager of the Year. And this was his best job. And one of the reasons was, I think, this team reminds him of him more than any team he's had before. They're grinders. They're unselfish baseball, smart players. They're the kind of players he was. And I think he relates to that.
And I think as much as any team recently, they bought into platooning at the bottom of the lineup. They bought into, we need different guys in the clubhouse to step up. They bought into this kind of ever-evolving pitching plan, and then they rallied around the fact that, Dustin May got hurt and Tony Gonsolin got hurt. They had to overcome Julio Urias' arrest and then being put on administrative leave and Walker Buehler not coming back. I think all that is fuel to them. I don't know how much that translates to October. So much of playoff baseball is just, do you get the hits with runners in scoring position? Do you capitalize on those moments where you can build momentum? But I think it will be easier for them this year than it was last year.
I do wonder, though, right? Obviously I've been checking in with Roberts periodically throughout the season, and at one point I think the argument he kind of made was, the reason that they all could buy in was frankly because they weren't as talented as previous groups, and I do kind of wonder, right? Like in the end, talent, I feel wins, and
if talent wins, the Dodgers would have won the last 10 years.
Right? No, right? Yeah, no. So but it's kind of this balance thing, right? Because I remember one of these games that I was out here, they were able to kind of match up lefty, righty, whatever, and they end up, okay, sure. So I think it was Kike Hernandez was facing a lefty late in the game, and that's what the game kind of came down to. This is a guy who, didn't really hit well in Boston. I mean, that's why he ended up here for a reason. This is not, it's better than having an automatic out. I mean, this is also not that far above that either, right? It's a very kind of marginal type of thing. And I do kind of wonder again, I'm not saying, obviously the buy-in thing is important, right? They did win 100 games, and especially over a 6-month regular season, those kind of things really matter. But in that short series, I'm kind of wondering again. They end up in that type of situation. Would they have wished, maybe I would have taken a really bad guy right now who can swing the bat a bit.
Dependable starting pitcher to turn to in a big game.
The biggest disappointment last year in the postseason was Mookie Betts. He was terrible. I think he batted 140. This year he says this is his favorite team. Last year he wasn't connected. Last year he seemed like he had an attitude, he was above it all. He wasn't having any fun. This year he's had more fun than he's ever had.
And it's playing as well as he ever had in this uniform too.
Mookie Betts is how this team goes. He should be the MVP of the National League. And
You're doubling down on that.
I also wrote that. And
Tell him to play better in September if he wanted to win the MVP.
Yeah, I think he may have lost it to Acuna. But he still deserved it. More versatile than Ronald Acuna. I don't want to get into it now, but he should have been the MVP.
All right, well, before we wrap this up, I'll ask predictions, just out of obligation, even though you already told me who you think's going to win. How do you think the series plays?
Sweep with a pool celebration.
With a pool. You don't think, what about the horse-mounted police? You just go by them? Do you, try to go the back way down the concourse stairs?
I don't know. I kind of have a feeling that the local Arizona government wasted all their money protecting their election offices and stuff, so they won't be able to afford mounted police anymore, leaving this pool vulnerable and open.
All right.
Sweep, but no pool. They're not going down there. This is a different team.
They did clinch in Arizona last year, the division, and the pool idea was quickly shut down.
Yeah, it'll be shut down. And I think the champagne should be shut down. I can't believe Arizona celebrated. They won 2 games in Milwaukee, and they're popping champagne. That's ridiculous.
I don't know if you've noticed, they haven't won a lot in recent years there.
Yeah, they won 2 games there. They won 2 games and you pop champagne.
Say act like you've been there before, but they never have been.
They
like
did
a
it
loser.
after a loss, just when they clinched
You
the
win
wild card.
2 games in Milwaukee and you celebrate with.
I think the Angels should just pop a champagne if they have a winning week.
That'd be
They
good.
win a series,
That would
pop
build morale.
champagne. Give us a. I mean, this is.
Why?
Flash,
Everybody, this is not
Flash,
angel.
Flash, this is a game of failure, man.
This is not angel debate.
Hall of Famers are out 70% of the time. I think if you
world's
ever have a chance
stealthiest Angel fan right here.
This is not angel debate. Blew off the.
I'm bringing them up as a symbol of incompetence, right? No, but I'm saying this is a game of failure, and I just think, and it's so long, and there's just so much.
No, and I agree. At the end of the season,
you celebrate whenever you get a chance.
At the end of the season, you celebrate. I agree. And at the end of the World Series, you celebrate. I don't.
Flash, you've been on the road with me. I celebrate whenever I can. If my wife and kids aren't around, I'm celebrating.
Is it celebrating, or is it just kind of numbing the fun
No, it's
parts of everyday
celebrating.
baseball?
Dylan makes deadline. He pours champagne on his head.
Boy, too bad you guys weren't covering the Texas Rangers the last couple weeks.
Oh my God! Don't get me started on that.
All right, then we won't. I'm going to pick the Dodgers, but I'm going to pick them in 5. I think one of these Arizona starting
You're from
pitchers-
Arizona. You're an Arizona.
Yeah,
homer.
I am from Arizona.
Arizona State.
I do think one of these Dodgers starting or D-back starting pitchers will have a good game here. And I think games 3 and 4 are going to be such crapshoots for the Dodgers pitching-wise that I just don't trust them to win both of those in Phoenix. Now coming back, if they have Bobby Miller, Clayton Kershaw in a game 5, maybe that'll be a great rallying point for this little engine that could Dodger team that push
The
through
engine that
playoffs.
could, the little blue
That's
engine.
right, yeah.
We should call this podcast the Little Blue Engine.
You guys can follow all our coverage, latimes.com. We'll have a lot of Angels covered. They will have, I'm sure, very boring, non-take-filled columns after each game. I have no doubt.
Read them and leap.
We appreciate you guys watching. We'll be doing this after every playoff game this month. That's the plan. Maybe we'll change the title. Maybe not.
You should plug our website in case they don't know.
LAtimes.com. You know that we do have a print product too that you can buy in some places.
So you have to pay for quality, right?
Go to Ralph's. They have them at Ralph's. Anyway, there's lots of ways you can find us. Again, for Bill Plaschke, Dylan Hernandez, I'm Jack Harris. Thanks for watching.